Tamara Chaloza, and I'm going to talk more concerning the dream that Ellen White had concerning this topic or theme, God Christ of the Narrow Way. In Christian Experience and Teachings of Ellen G. White, there is a chapter 31, where she describes the dream that she had, and she entitled the chapter Traveling on the Narrow Way. So the dream started when she was with people. The people were on a journey, and these people had their luggages placed in wagons, and they started off their journey, but the setting of the place was in this way. The other side was a white wall, which was so smooth and it was so long. As they moved on, the other feature that was present was a precipice, a very steep cliff, which was so dangerous if they had to fall off. As they traveled, their path was getting narrow and steeper, and they reached a point where they saw that traveling with the wagon and the luggage, huge luggage in it, they would easily fall. So they decided to loosen their wagons from their horses and to take a few luggage with them on their horsebacks. They continued to journey with their few luggage on their horsebacks so that they could travel safely. As they moved, the path got narrower, and they decided that they could no longer safely travel with the luggage on their horsebacks, since their luggage was pressing on the white wall, making them to sway towards the huge precipice. They then decided to just throw the luggage that they had into the precipice, and they went on and journeyed on with no luggage at all. As they moved on, their path got more narrower, and they were convinced that they could no longer go on their horsebacks. So they had to choose to walk by foot, and they had let go of their horses. In walking by foot, they could not even walk as a crowd. They decided to walk in a single file for them to fit in the path that was getting narrower and narrower. As the path got more narrower, they realized that there were cords that were dropped off from the white wall, and they thought that they could use the cords, they could hold them so that they could be balanced on the path that they were using. As they traveled, the path got more narrower, and they decided that they should remove their shoes because it seemed unsafe for them to travel on their shoes. So they chose to walk in their stockings. The path got more narrower and more difficult, and they also decided that they could not even go on whilst on their stockings, and they decided to remove them and walk completely barefoot. As they went on, they realized that their feet are hardly stepping on the ground, as the ground was getting so narrow that it was so impossible for them to rely on the ground, but rather to rely on the cords that they were holding up there to get balanced, to be balanced as they were traveling. The path was getting more narrower and difficult, and as they traveled, some stains of blood were observed on the white wall. This showed them that the people who traveled and who were ahead had encountered some injuries due to the path, which was so difficult and narrow, and they were also expecting that as they moved on, they would also encounter the same injuries, and they would also see how difficult the journey was. It is important to note that she mentioned that in her dream, people were getting fewer. The number of people was getting smaller and smaller at each stage, starting from the first step of the luggage, and then on the horses, and then on the shoes. All these steps had to make some people give up and go back. So even while seeing the blood, some people were so afraid that what will we meet in the few steps ahead of us. So some people were still dropping off and dropping out and leaving the journey. But there were some people whom continued traveling despite all the difficulties or the hardships they had been facing. And she mentions that at that point, the people who were still journeying on, they asked themselves, where are our friends? We were a lot of people, but now we are so few. Have we left them behind? And they said, yes, we have left some behind. Those people who were not used to hardships and difficulties, those people who were so comfortable with their lives, they could not bear the difficulties that were getting into their paths, and they decided to let it go and just not journey on anymore. As they continued with their journey, the cords were getting much bigger and much stronger, in the sense that they were able to bear and withstand the weight of the people, in the way that the people could safely trust in suspending themselves on the cords. As they journeyed on, the path got more narrower, that they had no choice but to fully swing themselves and suspend themselves on the cords. It reached a point that their path, the ground that they could step on, they could already hardly step on, was finished, and they had nowhere else to step on. And there was a big chasm that they had found. They were so afraid because they did not have anywhere to depend on their bodies, but only the cords. One of them asked, shall we depend on the cords? Shall we fully suspend ourselves on the cords? And another person said, yes, we can fully suspend ourselves on the cords, since the cords have been our balance all along. We can trust it and swing using the cords. At the other side of the chasm was a green field. It was so beautiful, with a lot of flowers and rays of golden sun. They were so in need of the green field, but then they did not know how they could get there, because there was a big gap between them and the field, a big chasm. Then they decided that let us trust the cords and swing ourselves to the green field. And the other one said, yes, we can trust the cords. Ellen White was with her husband, James White, in the dream, and she testified that they were also afraid, and they all got so much sweat on their face. They saw death in front of them. They almost gave up and just let it go so that they can just fall down and die. But they discussed that we have come a long way, we have passed through a lot of difficulties. Giving up now will not make sense. Giving up now will be a loss, because we have already encountered so many hardships. This is the last step that we have to go through. Let us just go through so that we can reach the green field, which is so beautiful and which is so peaceful. They trusted the cords, and she says her husband, James White, was the first one to swing himself to the other side, to the green field, and he successfully did it, and he reached to that green pasture. Then she also trusted that she can swing herself to that green field because her husband did it, and she successfully swung herself to that other field, to the field which was so beautiful. And she mentions that she has never seen a field that was as beautiful as that one. Then they celebrated, they praised the Lord that they reached that path. But it was so sad that the number of people who started on the journey and the ones who reached where they reached was so different. The people who reached there were so few. Only a few managed to overcome, to pass through the narrow path and reach where they reached. This dream has a lot of lessons that we can learn from. She did not place across the lessons that she wanted us to learn. She said that no comment must be said on the dream. And she said that the dream reviews a lot on the journey that the Christians are going to pass through, and that if her memory will still be alive, she will always remember the dream coming true on her path or her journey to heaven. But we can still learn some more important lessons from them. The first one is the one that we have already learned, that the people who had not been used to hardships and difficulties would not go further with the journey as the road got more difficult. We can learn from that we should not be always wishing that we are on our comfort zone, but we can adjust ourselves, we can make ourselves more able to even overcome some hardships and some difficult moments. The Christian journey will not be easy. If anything, it will just get more and more difficult. And we have to be ready for those times that are coming that will make us feel like giving up. We do not need to give up. We need to press on no matter what we are going to face. We do not need to be discouraged, but we need to get ourselves ready for the difficulties that may come our way. So that's all that I had for you concerning the dream she had in relation to our theme, Christ of the Narrow Way. Thank you.